Most people never realize they are weak, not because the signs aren't there, but because their habits feel completely normal to them. The excuses feel reasonable, the avoidance feels justified, the comfort feels earned, and so they move through their days in a quiet loop, never questioning why their life stays the same, never asking the harder question, which is this: what if the problem is me? That is not an easy thing to sit with, but it is the most important question a person can ask themselves, and most people never ask it. Weakness is not simply the absence of physical strength. A weak person is not necessarily someone who cannot lift heavy things. Weakness lives in the mind. It lives in patterns of thought, in emotional reactions, in daily choices that are made without awareness. It is the habit of choosing what is comfortable over what is necessary. It is the quiet decision to avoid discomfort again and again until avoidance becomes the default setting of an entire life. And here is what makes it so difficult to recognize. Weak behavior does not feel weak from the inside. It feels sensible. It feels safe. It feels like self-protection. The person who avoids difficult conversations tells themselves they are keeping the peace. The person who never starts the project tells themselves they are waiting for the right moment. The person who quits tells themselves the goal was not realistic. Every act of weakness comes wrapped in a reason that sounds almost logical. That is what makes it so dangerous. Let us be honest about what weak behavior actually looks like in real life. Not in dramatic, obvious ways, but in the quiet, daily patterns most people recognize, if they are willing to look closely. It looks like waking up tired every morning and deciding that today is not the day to change anything. It looks like scrolling through a phone for hours while a goal sits unfinished. It looks like starting something with energy and abandoning it the moment it becomes difficult. It looks like a person who always has a reason why their life is the way it is, and that reason almost always involves someone else, the economy, their upbringing, other people, circumstances, bad luck. There is always a reason. And the reason is never them. This is one of the clearest signs of a weak mindset. The complete inability to look inward and say, honestly, I contributed to this. I made choices that led here. I avoided things I should have faced. I chose comfort when I needed discipline. That level of honesty requires real courage, and many people simply do not have it. Not because they are bad people, but because they have never been required to develop it. Responsibility is uncomfortable. It carries weight. The moment you say, "This is my fault," you also accept that it is your responsibility to fix it. And that is a heavy thing to accept. So instead, many people choose the lighter option. They assign the blame outward. And in doing so, they also hand away their power. Think about that carefully. Every time a person blames something external for their situation, they are quietly telling themselves that they have no control, that external forces determine their outcomes. And if you believe that, truly believe it, then there is no reason to change your behavior. Because in your own mind, your behavior is not the problem. The world is the problem. Other people are the problem. And so you wait. Weak people wait. That is one of the most consistent patterns you will observe. They wait for motivation to arrive before they begin. They wait for the right circumstances before they try. They wait until they feel ready, until they feel confident, until conditions improve, until someone encourages them, until the fear goes away. But here is the truth about waiting. The motivation does not come first. The readiness does not come first. The confidence does not come first. Action comes first. And everything else follows from action. But the person who has spent years waiting has never tested this, because they have never moved without feeling ready. And so the belief stays intact that one day conditions will align and then they will begin. That day rarely comes. And slowly, without the person fully realizing it, the waiting becomes a way of life. The excuses become automatic. The avoidance becomes personality. And what began as a series of individual individual choices becomes an identity. The person is no longer someone who is temporarily avoiding change. They are someone who does not change. That distinction matters deeply, because once something becomes identity, it becomes defended. You have likely met people like this. People who become almost hostile when their habits or beliefs are challenged. Not because the challenge was cruel, but because the challenge threatens something they have quietly built their sense of self around. Their comfort, their narrative, their reasons for staying exactly where they are. Challenging that does not feel like help to them. It feels like an attack. And so they resist, they deflect, they find new reasons. They surround themselves with people who reinforce the same patterns. People who also have reasons, people who also blame the world, people who also quit. And in that environment, weakness is not only accepted, it is normalized. It becomes the standard. And anyone who raises the standard is seen as arrogant, unrealistic, or simply unkind. This is how entire circles of people remain stuck together. Not because they lack potential, but because the group agreement is that the circumstances are to blame. And no one is willing to be the first to say otherwise. Now, let us shift. Because this is not a conversation designed to make you feel condemned. It is designed to create awareness. And awareness, lo, is where everything begins. You cannot change what you cannot see clearly. And most people cannot see their own patterns clearly because they are too close to them. They are living inside the pattern. It feels like simply life. So the first act of real strength is not discipline. It is not waking up early. It is not training hard or working long hours. The first act of real strength is the willingness to look at yourself without flinching. To sit quietly and honestly examine your habits, your reactions, your excuses, and your choices. Not with self-hatred, not with punishment, but with the cold, clear eye of someone who genuinely wants to understand what is happening. Ask yourself the difficult questions. Where in my life am I waiting instead of moving? Where am I blaming instead of owning? Where am I choosing comfort when I already know what I need to do? Where have I been lying to myself quietly for a long time? These questions are not pleasant, but they are necessary, because a life built on comfortable lies is not a life of genuine strength. It is a life of managed avoidance. And at some level, the person knows this. There is a quiet discomfort that sits beneath the surface of an undisciplined life. A low, persistent sense that something is not right, that potential is being wasted, that time is passing, that the life being lived is not the one that was possible. That feeling is not an accident, it is information. It is the part of you that still believes more is possible. And the mistake most people make is trying to silence that feeling instead of listening to it. Strength begins with listening to it. Once you have the awareness, the next step is discipline. And discipline is widely misunderstood. Most people think discipline is about motivation, about a burning desire, about passion and drive. But real discipline has very little to do with how you feel. It is the ability to do what is necessary regardless of how you feel. When you are tired, when you are discouraged, when the progress is slow, and the work is hard, and no one is watching, and nothing feels exciting. Discipline is the quiet decision to act, despite all of that. And it is built slowly, through small, consistent choices made over time. There is nothing dramatic about the process of building discipline. It does not look like a movie scene. It looks like showing up on an ordinary morning when you do not particularly want to. It looks like making the right choice when the wrong choice is easier and no one would know the difference. It looks like finishing what you started, even when the initial enthusiasm has completely faded. Strong people are not people who never feel like quitting. They are people who understand that the feeling of wanting to quit is not a signal to stop. It is simply a feeling, and feelings are not commands. They are weather. They pass. The work remains, and the decision to continue in spite of the feeling is what separates the person who grows from the person who stays the same. Consider the difference in how weak and strong behavior operates in real situations. A person with a weak mindset experiences difficulty and interprets it as a sign that something is wrong, that they are not suited for the goal, that the goal is not for them. They use the difficulty as evidence that stopping is the intelligent choice. And they stop, and they construct a story about why stopping was reasonable. A person with a strong mindset experiences the same difficulty and interprets it differently, not as a signal to stop, but as an indicator that they are at the edge of their current capacity, which means they are exactly where growth happens. The discomfort is not a warning, it is a marker. It means they are in the right place, doing the right thing at the right level of challenge. Same situation, entirely different interpretation, entirely different result. Personal growth is not complicated in its principles. It is simple. It is just not easy. Do the difficult thing consistently. Honor your commitments to yourself. Control your responses. Stop making exceptions. Stop negotiating with your own discipline. Stop treating yourself like a child who needs to be coaxed and rewarded for every act of basic responsibility. Take ownership of your time, of your attention, of your words and your actions, of the quality of your thinking, of the people you spend time with and the environments you put yourself in, of the stories you tell yourself about why your life is the way it is. Strength is not a gift. It is not something distributed unevenly at birth to a fortunate few. It is built through daily choices, through the refusal to take the easy path when the necessary path is harder, through the willingness to be uncomfortable for long enough that the discomfort loses its power over you. You are not a fixed thing. The person you are today is not the only version of you that is possible, but the distance between who you are and who you could be is crossed one decision at a time, one morning at a time, one act of discipline at a time. One moment of choosing to face something instead of avoiding it. No one is coming to do this for you. No mentor will arrive at the perfect moment. No circumstance will align itself into the ideal condition for you to begin. No surge of motivation will carry you all the way to where you want to be. That is not how it works. That is not how it has ever worked for anyone who has genuinely built something in their life. It begins with you, today, with clarity, seeing yourself honestly, deciding, not with emotion, but with intention, that the pattern changes now. Not because the conditions are right, not because you feel ready, but because you are done waiting. And that decision, made quietly and kept privately, with no audience and no applause, is the most powerful thing a human being can do. Comment. No more excuses.